Hello, I'm Mario Joyner, Vice President and Small Business Sales Administrator for Nevada State Bank. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar where we'll be discussing the Nevada State Bank 2015 Small Business Survey. We'll talk about some of the concerns of the business people we surveyed and what they predict for the coming year. The webinar is presented by Nevada State Bank through nevadasmallbusiness.com. We're excited to have one of Nevada's leading experts on economic data with us today to discuss the survey results. Jeremy Aguero is a principal analyst with Applied Analysis who's often called on to provide economic data and also to help us understand what the numbers mean. His firm conducted the small business survey, and Jeremy is also one of our board of directors at Nevada State Bank. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for attending. Well, first I want to jump right into it. Outlook and concerns, one of the 6 sections that is referenced inside the survey. And I just highlighted 3 of what was noted as the challenges in small business today and wanted to get your feedback. The first was government regulations, hiring, retaining quality employees, and financial stability/cash flow. So I wanted to get your expert opinion on if these are the concerns you're hearing broadly outside of those that were surveyed.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any doubt about it that those are the right 3. And I don't know that it came as a big surprise that those made the top of our list when we surveyed small businesses here in Nevada. When we think about regulation, this was the first of those. Oftentimes what people are talking about is the Affordable Care Act, of course, sometimes referred to as Obamacare, and what that's going to mean for businesses. I think businesses continue today to be a little bit confused about what is required of them, what isn't required of them, what does it mean to have to provide health care. Am I large enough to have to do that? Am I covered? Am I not? And you're hearing a lot about that. In addition, there's been some push among local governments, both in the North and the South, to create some additional regulatory structure. Particularly when the economy was at its worst, they were looking at fees as a way to generate some additional revenue for local governments. And so what you found is that some businesses, big and small, started to feel some of the effects associated with that. If we think about the second one on the list, that's really, I would argue, probably the biggest long-term issue that businesses have. And that is, how do I find and how do I retain quality employees? I don't know how many businesses we work with in a given year, but I can tell you almost every one of them tell us the same thing. We've got one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States, and I can't find good people to fill the spots that I have open. It doesn't matter if it's financial services or restaurant operators or transportation companies. They all kind of say that same thing. We know that there's a lot of reasons for that. We know that a lot of people move to Nevada, for example, to find a job or to get a better job or something along those lines. We also know that there's a skills gap between a lot of the jobs that are open and a lot of the people that are out there that we kind of have to keep a bit of a close eye on, and we're monitoring relatively closely. There's been a lot of talk about our education system. There's been a lot of talk about quality employees. There's been a lot of talk about quality of life and those type of things, and whether that's keeping people here or whether it isn't. I know we'll talk more here and in other times about some of those factors, but nonetheless, all of those are playing into what is arguably the most important asset that any business has, and that's the talent, their employees. And I think you're seeing some of that concern. In terms of cash flow, that third one, I think a lot of that has to do with the residual effects, if you will, of the Great Recession. Our economy is clearly in recovery. As a matter of fact, I think 2014 was a very important transitional year for small businesses. That having been said, it's not as though every business is doing great today. It's not as though everybody's out of the woods. Certainly people aren't all back to where they were in 2000 or 2007 or 2008. Businesses are still struggling in some ways, and I think for many businesses, they're really concerned that the other shoe is going to drop. Yeah, housing's doing better. Yes, my top line revenue's doing better. Yes, some of those things are good, but I'm always concerned about the stability of that cash flow. And let's be honest, we've probably only had about a year, maybe 2 years, where we really felt comfortable that cash flow was stable. I think that's really what's going to make 2015 so important, and that's part of why, what folks told us in this survey was that, yes, we feel more stable overall, but we certainly want to see that continue.
I want to just share my small sampling just with the clients that I serve, and there seems to be some connection between retaining the quality employees and cash flow, only because some of these employees that they're trying to retain are highly paid. And so that can, if you don't have the revenues that were at the levels to support it, can create a strain, but the loss of those employees would be even more impactful. So I just wanted to share just my small sampling from my client base that there's some connection and synergy between the employment and cash flow, only because there's a cost to keep them there.
That makes a lot of sense. If we look at some of the broader employment data, this is nationwide, not just specific to Nevada, but what we're seeing is a lot of change, a lot of churn within the job force. We see things like layoffs and those that are kind of behind us. What we're seeing today is that a lot of employees are actually quitting at a higher level than they were before. A lot of folks that were working part-time are now going to look for that full-time job, or they're trying to say, hey, I can move up by shifting. Again, the potential to hit cash flow, just like you said, is pretty significant.
Well, another question that was raised during the outlook and concerns portion was about profitability. And just by the numbers, about 40% said the profitability remained flat from last year. I'm comparing year over year numbers. About 36% said they increased. And the positive was that only 2 in 10 said their profitability actually decreased. So it speaks to your optimism and what you're saying is actually happening now. So I kind of threw out some thoughts about why this looks this way, and again, this is just from a small sampling, but looks like there was some deferred CapEx, some capital expenditures that were delayed that now they can take advantage of because the top line revenues could support it. Expansion and R&D were other reasons that were used some of the excess cash that they had. So of course, from an income statement perspective, it could impact your profitability, but top line number seems to be pretty consistent. So I just want to know if that's what you're hearing, seeing.
Yeah, look, I think your small sample is dead on, right? I mean, think about what businesses have gone through for the past 5 years, right? Deferred maintenance, deferred capital expenditures. They've done everything they can just to stay afloat. And so what we're seeing now is a lot of those expenditures that they didn't make during the past 5 years, they're starting to make now. Whether those are research and development, whether that's fixing a building that they had before, buying additional vehicles that they needed that they put off for a couple of years. We're seeing that all over the place, which is increasing expenses just a little bit, while top line revenue is going up at even a higher level. That's pretty strong. But the best statistic out of everything you just said is 2 in 10. Right? That fact that 2 in 10 businesses let me say it in reverse, that 8 in 10 businesses are telling us that they're either stable or seeing growth in profitability is absolutely what we want to see. Those type of numbers, particularly of the type of businesses that we surveyed, reflect the type of strength, reflect recovery. They're not always going to reflect the fact that we're going to see growth in profitability overnight, again, because they're investing today so that they can make a little bit more money tomorrow.
And in profitability, another just thought that I had is just, it looks like the economy here locally anyway, it looks like it's continuing to improve, and it's off the paces from the heydays, but people still find ways to make money. They're much smarter and more efficient. So my thought is that we should continue to see these numbers supported by, if we do this next year, probably even higher numbers.
Well, let's just take a look at some of the economic data that we're seeing, right? We've had among the nation's highest decrease in unemployment. That's incredible for us. We're seeing job formation numbers among the highest in the entire United States. Matter of fact, we're behind only North Dakota and Texas relative to the speed at which we're creating jobs relative to the size of our economy today. We're seeing job growth in almost every sector of the economy, which is terrific for us. We're seeing a housing market that was the worst in the United States, now at the top of the United States. Now that's settled off in the past 6 months, but we've seen sort of this roller coaster ride a little bit in that housing market, and those housing prices have come back up, right? We're seeing job openings increase. We're seeing visitor volume at record levels. We're seeing new businesses relocate and expand into the state of Nevada. And all of those things, I think, point to exactly what you said, and that is that tomorrow looks like it's going to be a little bit better than today. The governor made this big shift in our economic development policy a couple of years back. And, you and I have talked offline about that a number of times relative to how important that's really become in changing the perception about Nevada. Now we're seeing businesses like Apple, we're seeing businesses like Tesla move into the state of Nevada. That is changing how we're viewed by some of frankly, some of the most coveted companies in the world choosing Nevada. Now, I think we're going to do more of that. But when you think about companies like Switch expanding and growing in Nevada, and new companies moving into Nevada, and small businesses expanding in Nevada, I don't know, we could talk about all of the economic indicators all day long. I don't know that there is going to be any better than the fact that small business people are putting money into the state, they're hiring additional folks, and that they're also believing that tomorrow can be better than today.
Well, to continue along your expansion conversation, and of course this question was posed to existing businesses that are here. You're talking about those that are looking at Nevada as an alternative to where they are now, or starting their business here, was just looking at the expansion, in the workplace, which is more physical, real estate related. My thoughts were 2010 to maybe 12, we saw a lot of shift from leasing to owning, from making modifications if they could. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts, because here on the survey this year, about 80% or so said they don't have any plans to expand, but they may have already made those plans. And we're talking about existing businesses, and just wanted to see if that was your sentiment.
The answer is yes and no on this one. I mean, look, the businesses today are going to utilize every asset that they have to the nth degree before they make that additional investment, right? I'm going to cram as many employees as I can. We all know that we're asking one employee to do two people's jobs. Last week it was to do three people's jobs. This week it's only two, right? They're trying to get as much out of everybody that they can. Yes, there were a lot of companies that took advantage of very low-cost office space, very low-cost industrial space, moved in and expanded some of their facilities, and now they're trying to take advantage of that. We are seeing some change, and what I would tell you is I think that our economy relative to businesses are pretty bifurcated in this regard. There's those businesses that have gone through that exercise and are going to continue to try and maximize those assets, but we are seeing an increased demand for some of that commercial real estate out there again. It's starting to come back. We're seeing prices go up a little bit, which we didn't see for about a 5-year period. We're starting to see even some segments of our economy where we don't have enough space. Take, for example, industrial space over 50,000 square feet. We don't have a lot of options relative to that anywhere in the Las Vegas Valley, for example. Now, up in the north, certainly there's Trix and some of those type of places, the Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex, right? That provides some incredible opportunities and has captured new businesses. That's great, and we want to have that in the state of Nevada. But we know today that we are actually missing out on businesses that would otherwise relocate to southern Nevada because we don't have some of those, the space that they need to immediately relocate. Not something we could have said a couple of years ago.
Well, another thing I just want to follow up that question with and just get your thoughts again was just the concerns that came up. And I'll just throw some at you and I'll let you go for it. The single largest concern was just healthcare costs, which you mentioned before, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. So that seems to still be a major concern for Nevada business owners that were surveyed. So that speaks to your point, so I won't even ask you to elaborate on that. But business taxes, I will. That was second. About 80% of those are really concerned. Some was, during this time, was that fail margin tax and some others. But just wanted to get your thoughts on the business tax climate and whether there should be this concern if it's warranted or not.
Yeah, look, just to touch on the first element of your question, first, relative to healthcare and some of those things, right? We're starting to feel some of that pressure from employees who haven't seen very much in terms of raises, but the cost of healthcare has been going up so much that their aggregate compensation is actually increasing. So there's going to be some tension there, and I think in 2015 and 2016, you're going to see more about that, and it's going to be a struggle for mid-size and businesses and above. That's going to be a struggle that they're going to have to deal with. Even some smaller firms, that's what they're going to have to deal with. Now, the tax policy argument, I think, is an excellent question because it's on everybody's mind, right? Legislature is in session. There's been a number of tax initiatives that have been discussed. Is it something that is worthy of attention? Absolutely it is, right? The governor's come forward and said, we have a problem with our education system. We have to do a better job of funding that. We need to have things like Zoom schools where students that are English language learners can get special help that'll help them accelerate their learning curve. What we've learned is that if you take a student who is not an English speaker and you teach them English, they oftentimes can outperform their English-only counterparts. That's good for us, where the alternative is you don't teach someone English, you're never going to teach them calculus, right? And so we need to advance that somewhat overall, right? You think about it in terms of the victory schools, the gifted and talented students, all of these programs that have kind of been left behind. The governor said we have to find a way to fund those. He brings forward a business license fee alternative, and other legislators have talked about some of the other pieces that are out there. That is going to be the single largest discussion that we are going to have through the first half of 2015, because it will affect businesses, because all of the focus is there, and because we're not talking about small dollar figures. So whether we're thinking about it in terms of education and that quality workforce, or whether we're thinking about how we're going to pay for it and whether that's going to affect businesses, I don't think there's any doubt about it. Businesses are going to be having this conversation throughout 2015.
You've done it again. Thank you so much for highlighting to our listening audience the outlooks and concerns section of the survey. I just want to say thank you so much for your knowledge, your assistance with us putting this together, and we will allow these to enjoy the same pleasure I had. So on behalf of Nevada State Bank, I'd like to thank Jeremy again for presenting this valuable information. To download a free copy of the 2015 Small Business Survey, go to nevadasmallbusiness.com/survey. If you'd like to see other videos in this series about the survey, you can find them on the webinars page of nevadasmallbusiness.com. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.